Indian Oil, a global Fortune 500 company that's managing one of the biggest oil and gas supply chains in the market. Hundreds of thousands of tons of crude oil come in from around the world to go into a whopping 11 refineries and through one of the world's biggest pipeline networks. Millions of kilometers of tough terrain and weather to keep India moving 24/7, 365 days a year.
And it's a cycle that never stops to catch its breath. Bet you never thought about that the last time you stopped to refuel.
We're off to see the journey of fuel. The fourth largest air force in the world. It takes more than 1,500 planes like these and in the ballpark of 150,000 people to keep more than 1 billion Indians safe and sound. And what's powering India's fighters? Around 1,250 metric tons of Indian Oil's aviation turbine fuel that's supplied to India's defense forces a day. Aviation turbine fuel is an exact chemistry, one that's double-checked before each refueling takes place. At India's 60 or so active Air Force bases, every one of 940,000 plus domestic flights that take off India's airports. Indian Oil refuels 3 aircraft every 2 minutes, every day without a break. Not to mention supplying enough fuel to meet 100% of the Indian Navy's and most of the Indian Army's fuel needs too. It's just one of the millions of trips fuel makes in a day. But where does this journey begin?
This is one of India's fastest growing ports. And 20 kilometers away from me, smack in the middle of the open sea, a ship's just come in. It's one of hundreds that come in from around the world. Some, such as the ships from Mexico, can take as long as 45 days to get here.
Paradip, along with Kandla and Mundra ports, receive a ship full of crude every day.
It's moored to Indian Oil's single-point mooring system. Built all the way out into the sea, Indian Oil's SPM has cut this ship's turnaround time to a fraction of before, while allowing bigger vessels to dock at the eastern coast shallow depths. What you're looking at isn't just any ship. It's a very large crude carrier.
It can carry anywhere between 200 to 300,000 tons in a single trip. That's about the weight of 9 Statues of Liberty.
Now at the jetty, there's just about 18 meters depth available below the water's surface. But at the single point mooring, it goes all the way down to 32 meters. You're seeing me in an intrinsic fire retardant suit. I'm wearing it for the same reasons that's got the Indian Oil team watching the choppy waves. These floating hoses carry extremely combustible crude oil from the ship into Indian Oil's underground crude oil pipeline network. This is the beginning of fuel's daily journey.
Fuel works pretty hard after it leaves a petrol pump. Indian Oil pumps more than 160,000 metric tons of petrol and diesel into India's fuel tanks a day. That's around 300 million visits to Indian Oil's outlets in 24 hours. For bikes and scooters and cars and trucks to refuel. So that this lady is able to get to work and to ensure these girls and boys get to school on time. And to get deliveries on time so that this man can take care of his entire family. While getting the order from restaurants to eager foodies bang on time. Just think of how many jobs depend on keeping that one bike fueled. And how about the journey fuel takes to get to this farmer's tractor? A lot of people's lunches and dinners, along with his livelihood, depend on keeping that tractor running. The grains he harvests, fuel cooks that too. Fuel helps this lady breathe easy in her kitchen now. Fuel keeps kitchens going across the country. Fuel moves people, livelihoods. Fuel runs our lives. Fuel runs our country.
Which means this entire operation from port to pump is timed down to the minute. Because running out of fuel means life comes to a standstill for you and for me. So the Indian Oil's team works backwards. They figure out how much you need and plan many months ahead. But what fuels your fuel? Now, the oil that's pumped out of the ground is unrefined oil or crude oil, and they call it black gold. It's a $2,700+ billion industry, and it's only getting costlier. There are over 3,000 combinations of crude oil in the market, and every refinery is configured differently. So Indian Oil manages the supply of crude oil centrally to ensure the right kind of crude oil reaches the right kind of refinery. So not a single drop of black gold goes to waste. This is one of the biggest oil and gas supply chains in the market. And I am standing at one of India's most modern, state-of-the-art refineries that is capable of processing 15 million metric tons of crude oil every year. And the magic is happening in those sky-high columns right behind me. Complex chemical reactions are breaking down the crude oil that forms the various fuels that run our lives. LPG, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and even the raw materials required for various petrochemical products. Indian Oil refines more than 170,000 metric tons of crude oil every day. And the entire refinery, down to every tiny little valve, is carefully controlled from this cutting-edge room. 24/7, 365 days a year. Through the refinery's pipes and columns flow highly combustible hydrocarbons. The guys behind me are keeping track of what's going into the columns. They've got to keep up with extremely stringent quality standards. But they're also watching how safely it's all moving through the refinery and how quickly it's leaving. The operation has to run like clockwork. The schedule cannot afford a lag. And then each and every single batch of fuel gets tested at this state-of-the-art, internationally accredited quality control lab. And the last mile of the whole gig, getting the fuel to you. Indian Oil uses India's extensive rail network to send out around 65,000 metric tons of oil a day.
That's almost a third of what Indian Oil needs to move to the market. But for the people of this faraway hamlet, this trucker has driven many hundreds of kilometers. His final stop? one of the world's highest petrol stations. The trip is hard enough in summer. It's virtually impossible for the 6-month-long winter. But stocking up for the winters isn't this pump's biggest challenge. It's so cold, fuel can freeze. So just for the people in Leh, parts of Himachal and some of the northeast, there's a special winter-grade diesel recipe to keep cars and bikes on the road through the year. And for Leh's homes, to keep kitchens lit through the year, an entirely women-run bottling plant fills and rolls out 360,000 LPG cylinders a year.
Now we're able to see the fuel that moves on the roads, but did you know that there's fuel that's constantly on the move beneath you? We're talking about managing one of the world's largest oil pipeline networks. So IndianOil moves 120,000 metric tons of refined petroleum products through their pipelines every 24 hours. Mammoth quantities of steel make up this massive 18,600 plus kilometer long India-wide network that's being monitored behind me. What does make it impressive is how minutely this entire process is planned.
Through the 12,000 plus kilometer long product pipelines, IndianOil's fuel hits around 126 terminals and depots to make the last leg to you. And then there's places neither roads, nor trains, nor pipelines reach. I'm talking about India's southernmost jewel. Ships carry barrels from jetties off of Paradeep and Haldia's coast, sail 3 days to get to Port Blair. IndianOil's team takes to the road where it exists. And where it isn't, barrels or containers ferry the fuel by sea. The furthest island is around another week away. So that the tiniest island, home to 1,000 or 2,000 Indians, can keep moving. IndianOil fuels flights, 2- and 4-wheelers and the ferries connecting the islands, as well as electricity. This is the only energy supply entirety of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep Islands too. And sometimes going the distance means braving temperatures as high as 50 degrees centigrade. Can you imagine how hot the metal LPG cylinder gets here? Never mind, say, having to fill them, roll them out and set out with them. With just about 17 or so people living in each square kilometer, IndianOil's team has larger distances to cover to get to Jaisalmer's homes. Homes that span cities and towns and villages in this border district. The trucker carefully negotiates his wheels over the desert's shifting sands. The delivery team braves cylinders made even hotter now that it's seen the elements. In the heart of the parched, arid Great Indian Desert, Thar, IndianOil's LPG cylinders are constantly on the move. Because whatever the weather is, whatever the terrain is, kitchens must keep going. Across India, this means delivering 2.7 million LPG cylinders every single day. That's around 150 million kitchens in the entire country. And to keep kitchens burning brighter and get you moving faster, sooner, Indian Oil's research and development team works through the year on brand new indigenized formulae so that your fuel is as Indian as the company's uniquely Indian mascot, the Great Indian Single-Horned Rhino.
And it's a cycle that never stops to catch its breath. Bet you never thought about that the last time you stopped to refuel. The journey of your fuel involves 11 refineries. One of them is India's, actually, one of the world's oldest operating refineries in Digboi, Assam, commissioned way back in 1901, and it's still churning out contemporary products. Fuel travels 4.2 million kilometers on road. That's the trip between us and the moon almost 11 times over a day to keep you moving every day.